Welcome back to Practical AutoCAD and Inventor. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a dimension style for AutoCAD that conforms to ASME Y14.5 conventions. The dimension style we're going to create here will conform to most of the ASME Y14.5 requirements that you'll have. It won't cover all of them, but it's a great starting place. To create a dimension style, the first thing you'll want to do is make sure that you're on the on the Annotate tab up here at the top. Go to the Dimension panel and choose the Dimension Style Launcher down here in the right-hand corner. Alternatively, you could type D or dim style at the command line to get this window to come up. And you'll see here that I've got my Dimension Style Manager up, and right now I've got a style here called Standard. We know that pretty much anything AutoCAD calls standard is kind of standard, but kind of not standard. So we're going to come in here and we're going to create one on our own that actually meets the standards that we're looking for. To do so, we'll come over here on this New button. You're going to choose New, and then you want to give it the appropriate name. In this case, I'm going to call it ASME Y14.5 with some underscores in there. We're going to start with Standard, and then I'm going to choose the Continue button right here. It'll bring us straight away to the first tab here, which allows us to define the lines, and we want to basically tell AutoCAD how to treat all of the elements when we place these dimensions. So starting on the Lines tab up here, the first thing that you'll want to see is notice that the color, line type, and line weight are by block, and by block. When you create a dimension in AutoCAD, it creates the dimension as one object, as a block, and it will apply the color, the line type, and so on as if to conform to whatever layer that dimension is on. And you should do it. You should always leave these as by block, so that when you place your dimensions, they will assume the layer of your dimension, or assume the characteristics of your dimension layer. So it's a good idea to leave these as by block. Don't change them to by color or specific colors or anything like that. The things that we really need to change here on this page are, number one, the dimension spacing. The dimension spacing is the dimension from one dimension line to the next dimension line when you have like maybe baseline dimensions in there. And the ASME standard says that there should be 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch between those two. So we're going to change that number right there to 0.25. And then the other thing that we want to change on this page is the extend beyond the dimension lines. That's the distance from the tip of that arrowhead right there to the end of that extension line. That only needs to be 1/8 of an inch, not 3/16 like they have it there. So we're going to change that number to 0.125 as well. Everything else on this page you can leave alone. Don't suppress any extension lines. Don't change any of these from by block to by layer or anything else. On the second tab right here where it says Symbols and Arrows, we want to use the closed fill. That's the USA standard arrowhead. That's the one that we want. But again, that arrow size does not need to be 3/16 of an inch. It only needs to be 1/8 of an inch. So we'll make that change there. And then for center marks, we're not going to use the center marks that will be applied by AutoCAD. So we're going to change this to none. If you need center marks in your drawing, and you will, instead what you'll want to use is this center mark tool right here that's on the Annotate tab. And that way you can get them placed. And there's another video I have that shows how to change the settings in this center mark tool. So you're going to change this to none. Notice that it grays out this distance because it's not applying center marks there. The only and that's the only thing that you need to change on this one. So you're changing the arrow size to 1/8 of an inch, and you're changing the center marks to none. The rest of these things you can leave alone. As far as text goes, again, there's that dreaded word standard. We don't want to use the standard Arial font that AutoCAD has. I think it's kind of ugly personally. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to create your text style. Now I've already done it, but if I come in here, you'll want to create a text style. In this case, I called it Dimensions. I've associated it with the Roman S font. That's that nice single stroke Gothic font that we expect to see on our drawings. One important thing that you'll want to do here is to leave the height set to 0. Do not apply a height here, because if you apply a height here, then it will prevent you from changing the height here. Okay, and you might want to be able to change it here. So we're going to change this from standard to dimensions. Notice that it's changed the style up here, and that text height right here should also be 0.125 of an inch, an eighth of an inch tall. We don't need to change anything down here except the offset from the dimension line. It doesn't need to be 0.09. That's 3/32 of an inch. That's really big. It really only needs to be about a 32nd of an inch. So I'm going to change that to a 32nd of an inch, 0.0313. And then lastly, I'm going to change the text alignment from horizontal to ISO standard. So notice now that the dimensions are going to be either read from the bottom or from the right-hand side. This dimension over here is kind of a little bit awkward. It's one of those angular dimensions. It's kind of read from the bottom, but it's not really read from the right-hand side. If this angle were to get even bigger, eventually this would turn around and be read from the right-hand side. And then this radial dimension right here, we're going to make a change here in just a minute. It's actually going to make this horizontal like it should be. So we can ignore that at this point. So we actually made a few changes here. We changed our text style to whatever is appropriate for your company. We changed the text height to an eighth of an inch. And we changed the offset from the dimension line to a 32nd, and then we chose ISO standard. The fit tab actually works pretty good. AutoCAD has this dialed in pretty good. You don't need to make any definite changes here. And then finally we have primary units. On the we're going to use decimal. That's the standard that we have in the ASME standards. But we don't need a precision of 4 places behind the decimal. Most places actually only need precision of 2. So notice I've got 2 places behind the 0 here. That's pretty standard in most manufacturing environments. If you need 3, you can do that. Anything more than that is usually a single call out. It's going to be a tolerance type of a situation. So we're going to leave that there. Notice that when I changed that, it did change this radial dimension over here to being horizontal, which is what we expected. Now the only other change we need to make here, according to the ASME standards, is when you have a inch dimension that is less than 1 inch, we want to suppress that leading 0 there. So notice it says radius of 0.80, it doesn't say 0.80. So you want to suppress that leading 0, but do not suppress the trailing 0. If you suppress that trailing 0, there's a big difference between 0.8 and 0.80. So do not suppress that trailing 0, only suppress the leading 0. Everything else on this page is fine. If you wanted to use alternate units, let's say you actually wanted it displayed with millimeters also, you can click that box and it will put the millimeters measurement there in the square brackets next to it. And that's standard the way it should be done. If you do decide to do this, do not give it a prefix and do not give it a suffix. Your inches should not have the quotation marks for inches, and your millimeters should not have the mm for millimeters. It's understood that that's what it should be. So you're going to make sure that you do not put anything either in prefix or suffix. But other than that, your alternate units and your tolerances, I've got another video that you could tune up, search for on my channel that talks about tolerancing, but that's not going to be included here. Now, one final thing. If you wanted to be able to fit just a little bit more into all of your dimensions, you could come back in and you could change some of these things to 3/32. Like the 1/8 here could be 3/32. The 1/8 here could be 3/32. And the 1/8 here could be 3/32. It makes it just a little smaller, but you're going to be able to fit a whole lot more information in there. As far as that goes though, it's actually all good. I'll choose OK. Notice now that ASME 14.5 is my current standard, and when I come in here and I'm ready to place my dimensions, everything is going to look just as I expect it to. Thanks for watching.